Remember, friends, in the second episode of this show, we had picked a trend. I had wondered aloud whether Quad was getting more aggressive on China. That was in the backdrop of the meeting of foreign ministers of the grouping, India, United States, Japan, and Australia, in Tokyo in the month of July. This week, Quad leaders met in Wilmington, Delaware of the United States. Prime Ministers Fumio Kishida, Anthony Albanese, and Narendra Modi joined President Joe Biden in his high school for their annual musings. The result was the Wilmington Declaration that clearly takes the Tokyo joint statement 2 notches higher when it comes to Quad's position on China. Quad is not a military grouping. It calls itself a regional alliance between 4 maritime democracies of the Indo-Pacific aimed at harnessing synergies for greater common good of the region. Leaders do not tire out to emphasize that it is not against China or aimed at China in any manner, a reason why the American press has lost all interest in Quad. The New York Times, for example, sent its junior health correspondent to cover the event in Wilmington because of the launch of the Moonshot Cancer Initiative, and not their foreign affairs editor. But obviously, China is the elephant in the room. The alliance seeks to counterbalance China's expansionism in its neighborhood, coercion with military means, threat of use of force, misuse of international law to its advantage on trade and technology, and abuse of rule of law to change the global order. Given this, are we moving in the direction of militarization of Quad, howsoever subtly so? Let me read the tea leaves for you. For the first time, a visible military component has been added. In 2025, the Coast Guards of the 4 countries would carry out a Quad at-sea observer mission to improve interoperability and advance maritime safety across the Indo-Pacific. In all likelihood, this is not going to be a one-off mission and might get institutionalized as an annual operation. Navies of the 4 nations are already part of the Malabar exercises, but those happen outside of the Quad mechanism. The declaration also launched a pilot project to pursue shared airlift capacity and leverage collective logistics strengths. On the face of it, this is aimed at coordinating civilian response to natural disasters more rapidly and efficiently across the Indo-Pacific region. But if you discount the diplomatics, this is dual-use arrangement that can be easily turned military. In the backdrop of an ongoing semiconductors war with China, so that China does not control this crucial building block of Industrial Revolution 4.0, the Wilmington Declaration brings together the Quad partners to realize a diversified and competitive market and to enhance resilience in semiconductor supply chains. Most significantly, while reiterating that the UN Security Council needs reform, the statement adds the word urgent before need for the first time, thus indicating towards a policy shift that broad-bases decision-making at the world body. Amid a general media boredom with Quad, the leaders sought to reassure that Quad was here to stay. The statement underscored how over the last 4 years, the leaders had met 6 times and foreign ministers 8 times and built a vital and enduring regional grouping that will buttress the Indo-Pacific for decades to come. Prime Minister Modi said as much.
हमारा मैसेज साफ है, Quad is here to stay, to assist, to partner, and to complement.
We express serious concern over recent dangerous and aggressive actions in the maritime domain. We seek a region where no country dominates and no country is dominated. One where all countries are free from coercion and can exercise their agency to determine their futures, says the statement. Guess who it is aimed at? This month marked the first time that a Chinese military aircraft crossed into Japanese airspace. On August 27, the Japanese Defense Ministry said in a statement that a Chinese Y-9 surveillance aircraft violated the territorial airspace of Japan off the Danjo Islands in Nagasaki Prefecture in the East China Sea. It prompted Japan to deploy fighter jets on an emergency basis. The incursion lasted little over 2 minutes and hence can't be termed a mistake. It was planned to provoke because the Chinese aircrafts circled waters southeast of the islands for over 2 hours before and after the airspace violation, before returning to their territory. 8 days before that, on August 19, a new flashpoint emerged between China and the Philippines in the South China Sea, when Beijing and Manila's vessels collided near the Sabina Shoal, both accusing the other of ramming them on purpose. The shoal, claimed by China as Xianbin Jiao and as Escoda Shoal by Philippines, is located some 75 nautical miles from the Philippines' west coast and 630 nautical miles from China. Escalating it further, the Chinese carried out a blockade with a 40-ship armada, preventing the Filipino Navy from restocking their already docked vessel at the shoal. This was, of course, not the first time. There has been a string of dangerous encounters in recent months as the two sides seek to enforce their claims on disputed reefs and outcrops, including the Second Thomas Shoal and the Scarborough Shoal. In the July episode, we showed you how China blasted powerful water cannons at the Philippines ships, and in one case, even physically attacked their personnel using improvised weapons like they did with India in Ladakh during the 2020 Galwan standoff. Taking these developments into account, the Quad Declaration mentions, and I quote, "We are seriously concerned about the situation in the East and South China Seas. We continue to express our serious concern about the militarization of disputed features and coercive and intimidating maneuvers in the South China Sea. We condemn the dangerous use of Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels, including increasing use of dangerous maneuvers. We also oppose efforts to disrupt other countries' offshore resource exploitation activities. We reaffirm that maritime disputes must be resolved peacefully and in accordance with international law, as reflected in UN clause." Unquote. How long before the patience runs out and Quad takes a military turn? Remember, in the case of Philippines, there is already a military pact with the United States, much like the Article 5 of NATO, making it incumbent upon the US to come to the aid of the island nation in case of war. It is anybody's guess how the situation would unravel if one of those skirmishes between navies or coast guards of Philippines with China turned deadly. Would Philippines activate the defense pact? And if that happens, wouldn't the interoperability clauses of Quad kick in? Also remember that except for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, rest of the three leaders are lame duck in their respective countries as of now. President Biden has already passed on the baton to Kamala Harris for the November election. Prime Minister Kishida has bowed out as we speak. And Prime Minister Albanese would seek re-election in first quarter of next year. So by the time the next Quad Leaders Summit happens in the summer of 2025 in New Delhi, it might be a full-bodied and robust set of leaders willing to step on the paddle when it comes to dealing with the bully in the Indo-Pacific backyard. Reading the tea leaves between joint statements each year, I can tell you, China might get named. And why not? Thanks for watching.